I'm Julia Davis, a film major who stumbled into the business world with no experience in 2006. I was able to fail enough to learn how to run a seven-figure business and have provided consulting services to over 200 individually owned companies. Through this podcast, I hope to provide some perspective on the growth and grit it takes to accomplish big goals and share some hard lessons I've had to learn along the way. Today on the Growth and Grit podcast, we're joined by Christina Langdon, a keynote speaker, a resilience expert, helping leaders that turn pressure into power and rethink what success really looks like. So thank you so much, Christina, for joining me today on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. So I know your background. Can you tell us a little bit about, how you got started in this type of industry and what led you to kind of creating this expertise and turning pressure into power?
Yes. And you know what? I love the title of your podcast, Growth and Grit. I can relate to both of them and really kind of see them more as opportunities rather than something maybe that is maybe considered more negative, right? So I spent nearly 20 years working alongside Martha Stewart through IPO, through media and tech disruption, where we launched 23 brands. And I was also there through prison. And there was a lot of pressure. So I know a little something about pressure and growth and grit, right? I finished my media career as the chief revenue officer at Fast Company magazine. And as you just shared, for the last 6 years, I've been a keynote speaker and coach to CEOs to help them scale their businesses by building a new relationship with resilience and pressure.
Okay, so I want to rewind for a minute because you said something that triggered a question for me. So, what was that like working with Martha Stewart when I watched the documentary on her? And it was so fascinating for me to see kind of how they utilized her position, when she went into prison. So like, what was that like working side by side with her when that happened? Like, what did it just rattle everybody? Like what happened?
Yes. I mean, it was a very, very difficult period of time. And I don't want to spend the time debating if she should have gone or not. She was convicted of lying to the FBI. And there was a year lead up to the trial. And then there was I think it was 8 months of incarceration. And then there was 2 years of building the company back to profitability. And the company for that period of time, let's call it 4 years, was really struggling.
Yeah.
And it was hard. I mean, I was leading the sales team at the time, and our buyers would be saying, you work for a swear word that begins with an F, felon. Right. And
Right.
yes, I would be. People would hang up the phones. The media and the press would be outside of my office building asking me questions while I went out to grab lunch. So it was very stressful. But there was a belief. There was a belief that the brand and what it stood for meant something, even beyond the person. So we were elevating the art of homekeeping. We believed that people could make money from their passions.
Right.
And we wanted women to be able to do whatever they wanted in their life. And Martha was a true example of that. And for anybody who's out there, it really is about believing in yourself and believing in your future potential and making decisions from her. And we believed that we could build back the company in 2 years. I mean, not every day. It was really hard. But overall and collectively, we surrounded ourselves with people that saw the possibility. And I don't want to go too down this rabbit hole, but when we get stuck, right? When things are difficult, resilience isn't about bouncing back. Resilience is really about bouncing forward. How do we bounce forward when it seems so difficult? It's never the how. So a lot of times business owners and CEOs reach a peak or they get frustrated or they hit that ceiling, they feel stuck and they say, I don't know how. They also say, am I capable? Am I really the one who can do
Right.
this? Right. And oftentimes that's very personal and understood. But when your brain offers you how, ask it who. Who has done this before? Who can connect me with somebody who has done it before? Who can I get support from? So when resilience is really about bouncing forward, and we're not doing it alone, we're doing it with other people, and that intelligence, that feedback, that inspiration, that intelligence can really be the thing that gives us an unlock that we need to feel capable, to feel unstuck again. So always ask the who when your brain gives you the how. How's a dream killer?
I really like that because there are so many people that are already in your life that could probably help you get to the next step. Your mind is just closed off and thinking only one path, right?
Yes.
That's
And
really, really
sometimes we just need someone to give us a poke,
right.
someone to ask us. I mean, one question can change the whole world. When you have those meetings, we've all had them where someone says something that just gives you that unlock. So when you're feeling stuck, instead of asking how, go for the who. And that who may not be one person. Like I'll go back to the
Sure.
question around Martha Stewart when she was getting out of jail and we were planning for her getting out for the months that she was in there.
Right.
And how could we get back on the national stage in a positive way? Because she was so divisive at the time. And we asked around, who has done this before? Who can help us? And that's really when she got connected to Mark Burnett. And she came out and she filmed in a season of The Apprentice. It was The Apprentice, Martha Stewart's Apprentice. Donald Trump had to give us permission. And that got us on the national stage like 3 weeks after she came out. And that then led to her syndicated talk show that launched in September. So if we had waited to September to try to get on the national stage, we would have lost a lot of momentum. So really, this apprentice show that really was not very good. Uh, but it did put us on a national stage. We likely would never have thought of the Martha Stewart's Apprentice if we were not talking to a who.
I love what you said there because so many times I feel this deeply in business where we try to solve every problem on our own, or we
Yeah,
feel like asking for help is a negative, or it makes us look weak, or we can't handle it, or something like that. When in reality, Martha could have done one of two things, right? Run away from the topic and just said, pretended like it didn't happen, but instead she ran towards the negative
she
and
ran
said,
towards the pressure.
right. And said, okay, this is what happened. This can turn into a positive for me. Let me find somebody who has the experience. Let me leverage that experience and utilize it to make my brand even bigger and better, which is incredible. So,
And I oftentimes ask my clients, and when I have a whole keynote around this, if this were a good thing, what is it asking of me? When we get challenged, ask yourself the question, if this were a good thing, what is it asking of me? Because every pressure point is asking us to step in to a new level of capacity. Now, sometimes we don't want it. Sometimes we get tired of making the lemonade out of the lemons. Yes. But if we weren't making that lemonade, we would be someone that we were years ago, right? Because we are always growing. You brought up something earlier that I thought would be helpful for me to talk about. So we are business owners, we lead teams, and oftentimes we are the ones who we feel like we are the one, right? We're the one having to carry it all. We are the one holding the goal, having to deliver the responsibility of the goal and holding it all together and being the leader that's having to lead everybody. And it feels very heavy and there's a big weight. And leaders, we have been trained to do a lot of things. We've been trained to lead, we've been trained to execute. And in all of that doing, That's the very thing that keeps us from stepping into the next version of ourselves. So the research shows, and this is something that we can take back to our teams as well. If we don't imagine a future, if we don't ask ourselves, who do we want to become? We'll never become. So 7 out of 10 leaders cannot envision a future for themselves. So I want the leaders that are listening to think about that. If 7 out of 10 leaders can't envision a future for themselves, that's a big deal. That probably means everybody on your team can't envision their future. That's because our brain has been trained to execute, and that very performance energy is what suppresses imagination. So there's nothing wrong with anybody, right? It's just that we are spent so much time executing, and that actually suppresses imagination. And imagination, I'm not talking about creativity. I'm really talking about the ability to imagine something that doesn't currently exist. Imagining, what if I became the leader, the doer, the salesperson, the executor that was number one on my team? Who will I have become? How could I get there? And finding that gap. What gets in the way of high achievers isn't that they don't have enough effort, or they don't execute well, or they don't have grit, as you said, right?
Right.
It's that they don't have a vividly imagined future.
Is
And
is that in line with like visualization? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Like visualizing the person you want to be before you're that person and just acting as if you are already her or him?
100%. And what I hear from CEOs more often than not is that they don't have time. They don't have the resources when things slow down. And when your brain offers you all these time things, it's not a time issue, it's an identity constraint. So visualization in how we are describing it isn't woo-woo, and it's not necessarily a vision board, but that could be one thing that we do. But it's really about answering the question of who do I want to become this year, in my life, over the next 3 years. You could ask it for your company. What do I want my company to become? And in that, who will I have become? So I work with teams and talk about in my keynotes, it's about having a process that I call is the vision process. It's about bringing this in as a practice. And for leaders, it's a practice that's got to be daily. We have to level set and ensure that we are acting from our goals, not getting caught in the organizational system of our calendar, right? Everybody gets challenged with the calendar.
Yes.
So the practice it's an acronym for vision. V is a vividly imagined future. And answering it every day, just like every relationship, it's going to change. But at least asking yourself, if I had a vividly imagined future, what would that be? Who would I become in that? I is identity. What's the identity is the gap between where you are and where you want to be. S is setting a daily practice. This has got to be a daily practice. The most successful entrepreneurs, they're intentional, they're deliberate, and they're consistent. Bringing it into a practice and asking your team to do the same for themselves. I is intentionally leading yourself. O is overriding the old voice. I'll talk about that in just one sec. And then N is not now, not when, but now. Giving yourself urgency, right? We have to make one difficult decision each day to get us closer to who we want to become. And what that means is stepping away from the calendar as our to-do list, right? And really looking at, that inner critic, that override voice. We have two voices, right? One is the loud voice that tells us everything we're doing wrong, that we're not capable. Why is it so hard? Questioning the difficulty, right? And the other is what I call the voice of the whispers. And they come to us in the shower, in the car, when we're walking the dog. that really is the desires, those hidden desires of what we really want. And oftentimes high achievers get into the doing so much that they get disconnected from that voice of desire. We should be asking ourselves, listening every single day for what are the whispers telling us. But it's really good to understand why the negative, the loud voice shows up, understanding that it's there, understanding that it's actually trying to protect us from something. So when it says like, you're not capable, or you're not the one, or you're stupid, right? I have them too. That is just our brain protecting us from a fear of failure, a fear of not being able to achieve the goal. And if we have compassion for that voice that's actually trying to protect us from something, the moment we have understanding for it, we separate it from that, how personal it feels. But know that that inner critic represents 85% of those 60,000 thoughts in our head every single day.
I have a
So
question based on
yeah.
what you just said before you continue, because this is so on point with, I think, what a lot of these businesses need. And talking about the negative voices, sometimes the small business owner will get an online negative, right? From somebody who maybe interviewed with us or had a negative experience with one of our people, or and
Mm,
I I feel as though you've handled this on an extreme level
yeah.
as far as online negatives. Um, and these are small business owners, that their image is so important because they don't have a huge brand to back them up. They just have their small, little independent company. And those negative reviews can be devastating to not only recruiting, but also just to their own morale and questioning if they're even, capable of doing the job because they're getting blasted online from something. So, what advice would you have for people that are facing something like that? Like, how would you, what kind of feedback would you have?
So I'm going to answer that in two ways.
Okay.
One, to a direct review, negative review, and then the second will be um, from a leadership answer.
Okay.
But yes, we are all faced with the potential, and some of us have received negative online reviews. And coming up with, we want to be very intentional with how we respond. We don't want to react from emotion, right? We want to react from a solution. Oftentimes, we react, and when we react, we lose ownership. We lose our agency in the reaction. And by the way, we don't want to be right here. In this negative online world, we don't want to be right. We don't want to get into a bitching match with
Right.
somebody
Right.
over who's right, because right is all about ego. From a negative online review, we want to be taking the approach that in my line of business, we strive to do X, Y, and Z. And it seems like for you, we may have fallen short. I've reached out to you separately through an email to see what we can do. Because guess what? You're responding to the reader who will read the review. You're not responding to the reviewer. And we want the reader of that review to hear what type of a leader you are, that you are a leader who strives for excellence, who takes responsibility. That's so much more important than proving you're right, right?
Yeah,
Does that
absolutely.
make sense? Does
Yes.
that land?
Yes.
Now let's take that reactive conversation a little bit deeper. So in business, just like in competition, there's offense and defense. Games are won on offense. They're not won on defense. And when we show up in defense, we are showing up reactive. We are showing up in right, being the need to be right. We're also showing up tactically, right? We're showing up like in the moment. And leaders always want to be thinking about their future state, right? Where am I going? What is the outcome I'm trying to generate? We don't want to get pulled into being reactive. We want to be very intentional about the outcomes we are trying to create. And what is the ultimate outcome? Like, it's so funny. Like when I talk to sales leaders, let's say, and they say, well, the outcome I want is to give the presentation. I want to get through the presentation. No, the outcome is the sale. And so how do we get them to sale is the answer you want to be creating. So like, what is the outcome you want from any meeting, from any email? But when we show up on the defense, we're not going to, you know, make the shot or make the touchdown. It's really about being on offense and coming up with what is the offensive strategy to get us to through the goal line.
Yeah, that tracks for sure. Especially if I've seen that because of the reviews and maybe responses that haven't gone as smoothly as you just did. That now they're creating a ripple effect in their business
Yes.
where new people are coming up to them and saying, "Hey, I read these reviews. This is making me concerned about working here."
Yeah.
When in reality, you're saying like, "Hey, just hit it head on and talk about it up front and say, we've got some negative reviews online and this is why they happen and this is what our goal is and working from an offensive strategy so that you're getting ahead of it before they even see it."
Perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
What other challenges do they have like that?
Um, I think another big challenge that we run into in small business is having tough conversations with urgency because we're more afraid of hurting that person's feelings, or we think maybe this person will turn it around. Like maybe all of a sudden they'll become productive. Maybe if I give them enough time, they'll become good. But in reality, it's just siphoning money out of that business because, a lot of these guys are on guaranteed wages. And if they're
Mhm.
not being productive and not moving the needle for themselves, what advice would you have for that? Like, can you make an unproductive person productive? Or how would you lead a team since you led sales teams?
Mhm.
What would you do if you had team members that were unproductive? Like, what kind of conversation would you have with them to either get them up or off the roll call?
That's a really great question because it comes up often when I'm talking to CEOs and they say to me that their problems are sales or their problem is marketing. And then they say, but then there's this one guy.
Yeah.
And it's always the one guy that is so much more costly than the sales or the marketing. Um, I believe that unproductive people become not only a distraction for you, the leader, but they also become a distraction for everybody else on the team because everybody else is seeing how they're behaving. So it really represents and reflects you as a leader if you are not managing your team to expectation. Now, we all know that some people fall short. We all know that some people make mistakes, and that's okay. But I do believe having a lot of candor is really important. And it's your business. And asking them for what you need in your business is super important. Like, we don't want to be, when we're having what I call energetic conversations, we don't want to be punitive. We don't want to say, you're not doing enough. You want to take the point of view of, this is what I need from you. I need this, I need this, I need this. You can start it by saying, here are the standards that I've set in my business. Those standards are an expectation that I have for you in this role. And here's what I need from you. And can I count on you for that? So actually, tell me now, what can I count on you for? When do you want to circle back and have this conversation again? So we can have deliberate conversations, intentional conversations that are in pursuit of elevating productivity. If we don't have them, we're not only doing a disservice to the business, but we're doing a disservice to every person on that team who's working super, super hard. And if they're saying, well, I'm really challenged with this, let's try to solve that for them.
Right.
If there's something they don't understand, if there's something that's getting in their way, let's solve for that. And we can tell them that. Like, what are your challenges? Because if I can solve for it, great. But when you've outlined the standards, the expectations, they know the level that they need to meet to stay on.
Yeah, that's so spot on with what I think they need to hear for sure. So that was an incredible answer. Thank you for that. I want to go more into personal negatives because I do think this sometimes limits someone's ability to succeed, or they look at this personal negative as I need to completely switch gears or go, do something else or whatever. But I know that you ran into a personal negative, right, with a leukemia diagnosis in
Oh,
your career, right? So how did that change your perspective on life and success? And I mean, it could have easily been like, forget it, I'm just gonna heal and not do anything. But you use that personal challenge to redirect yourself into maybe a new career or a new focus or a new motivation. What advice do you have about that? Because maybe it's not that extreme in our cases, but there are similar negatives that pop up, whether it's health or family or parents being negative about career choices or whatever it
yeah.
is. What do you do?
All of us are hit with personal detours throughout our career. Um, and for me, the biggest detour I ever had was getting the diagnosis of acute myeloid leukemia. And when you get that diagnosis, you're immediately put into the hospital and you are critical condition. And you're in the hospital for the first induction round, which for me took it was 36 nights. My first day in the hospital was 36 nights, and I was in treatment for a little over a year. For me, what I learned is that I had, as I've shared with you, worked for very notable brands, and I had succeeded and achieved. If you looked at my LinkedIn profile, I was perfect on paper. Yet at a certain point, I was perfectly miserable. And I thought there was something wrong with me. Like, what was it that I'm now CRO and I'm running the show and this is what I wanted. What is it about me that was being unhappy? Like I really took it personally and thought there was something actually wrong with me. What the diagnosis did was give me the time. And this is also going back to being very intentional. We don't give ourselves enough time to think and pause and reflect. I think every CEO needs 2 hours a week of super think time to answer that question, who are we becoming? Well, I got a lot of super think time in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I had to really do the work. We're not taught that in one study, it says that success is attributed 84%. It's the Cambridge Institute of Innovation says success is attributed 84% to mindset. Think about it. We're not taught about mindset. We're not taught about mindset in high school or college. If we were, we would be able to have another relationship, a new relationship with pressure, right? So I had to really take myself back to school and figure out what it was where I was feeling out of alignment. I had been following the set success scripts that others had written for me, whether it was my mom, whether it was the patriarchy, society, my industry that had me achieving. I was hyper responsible. I was hyper vigilant. And that was actually becoming very, very corrosive, very, very toxic to my health. And so I had the gift, if you will, in hindsight, I see, of this long pause where I was able to redefine what success looked like for me. My mother said, you write your own life script. I wasn't writing my life script. I was offloading it to other people and wanting validation from other people to actually prove my self-worth. And what I decided was that if by the grace of God, I would be able to survive, what would success look like for me? And I actually defined it. I ask everybody, and I talk about this in some of my talks about We each of us have to define what success means to us. It's not titles or money, but those are possibly outcomes of success, right? That might be outcomes of success. Success for me is about being successful. I've changed the word successful to add a letter, and it's really full of more joy, ease, and impact. And those aren't fluffy words. I've really done the work to define them. You find your words that meet your criteria. For me, I want joy and I want ease and I want impact. I still wanted impact when I was laying in that hospital room. It's why I wrote the book For Success' Sake. I had always wanted to write a book. I had so much time, and it was probably a survival tactic
Mhm.
that I started writing a book.
Yeah.
Impact was important to me. What's interesting with impact is when I have impact, it allows me to have ease, and ease does not come naturally for me. And when I have ease, I can get to joy so much more easily. So for me, it's really a recipe. What's your recipe? Right?
Right.
We have to really define that. And I want to like dumb this down because if somebody is hit with a power outage from a personal power outage, that's hit. Ask yourself, who do I want to become in this season? Who do I want to become through this? What is this challenge asking of me today? Life is long. And oftentimes we think we have to do it all at one time, and we don't. Sometimes we just need to give ourselves a little bit of grace to get through.
Hmm. Yeah. What is the best book you've ever read in regards to getting out of your head or moving the needle for yourself or even just, self-development? What book could you recommend to people watching this?
So I tell the story that I worked for Martha for a very long time and we didn't have a lot of HR support. I was a young manager too. I mean, I started managing people when I was 26 years old. No one taught me how to manage. I didn't have HR to give me some development support. And at one point in my career, I had 23 direct reports. So I used to joke that on any given lunch hour that was free, you could find me on the floor of Barnes and Noble in the self-help aisles. That is true, true, true. So I feel like I've written a lot of books. And of course, I have to say selfishly, my most favorite book is my book,
Right.
For Success' Sake. Um, but I read Playing Big by Tara Moore early on in my journey. And she was the one who got me into understanding the importance of vision and why vision mattered so much. We are so connected with other people, but sometimes we lose the connection with ourselves. And that's where the whispers, I'm going to bring up those whispers again. We've got to listen to them. So Playing Big is in my journey, was an incredibly important book for me to read. But I do think that for your audience, some books to read that would be helpful would be The Gap and the Gain by Benjamin Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. They also wrote Who Not How. And Benjamin Hardy has written by himself that 2x is easier than 10x. So all of those books have been really instrumental in terms of business books, if you
Yeah.
will. But the book that sits next to my bedside table that is earmarked, it's dog-eared, it's got Post-its in it, it's got underlines in it that I reread all the time is The Pivot Year. And her name is Bethany. I'm forgetting her last name, but it's The Pivot Year. And it's a beautiful daily reflection to have you think about something in your future. So I believe that when I set it in the vision practice, setting a daily practice, the most successful people have a practice that they follow every single day. And for me, it's journaling and listening, being the watcher of my thoughts, putting them on paper, and reflecting on who I'm becoming every single day as a practice. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I mean, the research shows that you get to the subconscious when you write 3 full pages. Just do it. If you only do a couple sentences, great. But that moment of reflection, and so the pivot year always gives me something to reflect on in when I'm moving towards my vision, and it gives me something to write on. And when you put pen to paper and without constraint, and when you do it as a practice, it opens up new thinking, new ideas, new thoughts, new insights that we can carry into our day to lead ourselves, to lead others with more impact.
That's a really good technique, and that's something I need to get better at for sure. When
And it's important that not everybody will journal. If we are business owners, pen to paper is what we should be doing in our business every single day. So I think journaling is really important, but some people resist it. So there is walking without technology, right? There is meditation,
Mhm.
right? There's listening to binaural beats, which helps unlock creativity. So there are other ways to set up a possibility practice in your day. But I think for CEOs and business leaders, a journaling practice is the most effective.
You're the third person who said that this week, so I feel like it's a message for me personally. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that we're moving at such a rapid pace that when you can slow down and unload what's in your brain, it helps you
What
figure
got you
out where
here
to
is
go
not going to
next.
get you there. Sorry that
Right.
I spoke over you.
No, no, that's okay.
And so we have to know that what got you there, it's not just a saying. What got you there won't get you it will get you here. What got you here won't get you there. So here are 3 questions for the reluctant journaler.
Okay. Yes.
Simply asking what's working. Always start with what's working and
Yeah.
force yourself to make a long list. 10 things. Because most of us want to start with what's not working. What's
Right.
working? And it could be the little things that are working. It could be the sale that you did 2 years ago. Just write a list of what is working. It pulls us out of the fear state and puts us into the critical thinking when we go to the what's working. And then ask what's not working. Now, this is important, not from shame or blame. When we are asking ourselves what's not working, it's from the auditor's viewpoint, where we want to be an auditor of our business, of our being, right? We're
Mhm.
not doing it from shame or blame. And then the third question is, what do I want to be doing differently? And that is a roadmap for the day ahead.
And so doing this in the morning or at night or
Yep.
whenever somebody has a minute of free time, that's not a lengthy exercise. I mean, that's a
No, it's
30-minute
5 minutes.
exercise. Yeah.
It's 5 minutes.
5 or 10 minutes, right? So
And
just
I would say like have a journal that's dedicated, that's off to the side. And then when you're doing it, I would also have like a piece of paper for you to write your to-do list. This is not your to-do list.
right.
What's working, what's not working, what do we want to do differently is not a to-do list. We want to be writing that all out, but we might want to put something on our to-do list on the side,
That we think
right?
about, right, during that time.
Mhm.
And this will be my last question before we talk about how people can find you in the
Oh,
future.
great.
Um, what is a mistake that you see people repeating quite often? And if you could just reprogram the mentality of people, what would be, we talked about visualization, we talked about having, the belief system and doing all of that. Is there like a repeated mistake that you see that you're like, gosh, if I could just get somebody through that, it would be so helpful?
The I'm not enough. Like most leaders, it happened just yesterday in a workshop I was giving with a brilliant executive leadership team. They're brilliant. All of them, in one shape or form, were coming from a place of not being enough. And I think when we think we're not enough, I would offer, have you defined like what is enough? Have we defined what enough is?
Mm,
Because it's like, swimming to the horizon,
right.
right? We just never get there. So if you're not enough, like what's your definition of enough so that you can measure yourself to performance success?
Hmm.
Um, I think the biggest mistake, I think I want to answer with more than just one. You know, the biggest mistake is that people don't understand that mindset is 84% attributable to success.
Yeah.
And they're not placing importance, time, and resource against it. I also want to go back to what you said just earlier regarding productivity of somebody that may not be a productive performer. When we have people that continue to reveal themselves to us, they become a distraction for not only the business, but for the team. And that when we let go low performers, it typically, the tides rise. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many leaders have said to me, "Oh my God, I feel like I've lost 10 pounds after they've let somebody go." They like them, they're good people, but
Right.
they're just not the right
Not right
fit,
fit.
right?
Right.
And that everything changed after they let that person go. I
Yes.
think I might offer another mistake. I'm one more, and then we'll move on. Fear is one of the things that holds us back. And when I was meeting with this team yesterday, doing a workshop, an offsite for them, they have a lot of fear because they're at an inflection point, which is a beautiful thing in their business.
Hmm.
Fear is a signal that we are on the right path. If we weren't experiencing the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty, it's likely we wouldn't be doing the right thing.
Hmm.
So fear isn't something to move away from. Actually, fear is something to move towards.
Yeah. It's a great perspective on that. That's the first time I've heard. I mean, I've heard run towards the fear, but I think what you just said is so spot on because usually some people say, okay, well, if I'm scared or this is going poorly, I must need to run in the opposite direction. It
Right.
must be a sign that I'm going the wrong way. When in reality, it just means you're being challenged and you need to rise to the occasion and keep moving forward and push through it, right?
Yeah, and I'll go back to resiliency because this is what my keynote's all about. Resiliency is not about bouncing back from an issue, a challenge. Resiliency is about bouncing forward to the next version of yourself.
Right.
And we have to lead ourselves first to lead others for more impact. And we are the biggest influencers in our life. Social media influencers, we hear a lot about. Sometimes we offload our influence to others, but in fact, the biggest influencer that we have on us is us.
Hmm.
Bouncing forward is also bouncing towards the unknown. We
Yes.
must stretch ourselves every day. The reason why they call it growing pains is because, it sometimes can feel painful,
Right.
but we want to be bouncing forward, and there is tension in that. And if there wasn't tension, we wouldn't be building something. When you
Mhm.
think about a rubber band, it's useless until it has tension. So the tension, building a new relationship with tension is the key to growth, growing ourselves and growing our teams. If there wasn't tension, some people think tension is like a negative thing. I would invite people to consider, what if it was a positive thing?
Mhm. Mhm. So somebody who's looking at tension as a negative, how can they transform that mindset to think about it in a positive way? Just putting themselves in that situation more often? Or like how do you move the needle in the brain to be able to make it seem like something that's helpful versus the opposite?
So it's about asking the questions. So there's tension in all of our lives every single day.
Mhm.
Some of it we manage brilliantly and we don't even think about as tension, right? And then some of it we make meaning. So we're making it mean that they are a bad employee, that they are not doing their job. It's causing so much, and that is when it's a mindset thing.
Mhm.
We can choose, instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?"
Mhm.
We can ask the question, why is this happening for me? So it's a matter of saying, what is this tension asking of me? I would also poke a bit around it and say, Where is there truth in this tension?
Mm-hmm.
And what if there was another truth?
Mm-hmm.
Like leukemia, like Martha going to prison, and me being a single mom of 3 children going through a divorce at the same time. Lots of tension,
Yeah.
lots of tension, lots of pressure. But we must see the pressure, the tension as an invitation to something else. That's how capacity grows. And otherwise, we just stay the same. And when we stay the same, we're actually not staying the same. We're actually falling further and further behind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I choose to find that I feel like there's a solution to everything. So within the pressure, what is it inviting me to consider? What's the solution?
Right. Who do I want to become? Like you said
Who do I
before.
want to become? It's a personal development course, all in one question.
Right.
Who do I want to become? And oftentimes people will say, I don't know. I can't answer it. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. Like their brain will fight it. And we must sit with the question, who do I want to become? And if it's too big of an answer, you want to say, who do I want to become in this moment? I want to become somebody who will give myself grace and time and effort to be able to answer this question. I might ask them to say, who do I want to become? If they can't answer it because it's too big, to ask, why am I having trouble answering it? What is keeping me from answering it? Like that's the gap in the vision sequence. The I is identify the gap.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the gap between where I am and where I want to be? All of this can be done 5 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be something big. But when you get an unlock, when you are the watcher of your thoughts and you get that unlock, everything can change because the world can change just with one question. My world can change. Your world can change by answering just one question. We've had those unlocks in our life. We just have to continue to invest in exploring who do I want to become?
And who do I go to, right, for the next level? And like you said
And
at the
who do I
beginning,
go to?
who do I
Yes,
connect with? Who do I go to? Who's been in this
yes,
position before? How can I learn from that person,
yes,
right?
yes.
Excellent. This is so helpful, and I think this podcast is going to help so many people. So I really truly appreciate you taking the time to do this. Um, I want people to be able to find you after this. So,
Yay.
what is the best way for people to contact you or find you? Is it LinkedIn? I can put your profile link in the description. What's the best way?
Yes, absolutely. On LinkedIn, Christina Langdon. You can find me there. I post there several times a week.
Right.
I love to write. I wrote my book For Success Sake, and you can get on my newsletter. It's called the Sunday Sunshine Newsletter.
Oh, perfect.
Um, and then I can also give you a link to an assessment
Oh,
that
great.
people can measure their degree of their future self.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So I want to put that link. I'll get it from you, but we'll put the link in the description along with the link to your book and
Oh,
your
terrific.
LinkedIn profile so that people can
Terrific.
access all of that in one spot after they listen to this. But
Terrific.
just thank you so much for doing this. It's always great to hear such a wise perspective of life lived and obstacles overcome and all the things that you've gone through has it's just been amazing hearing your story. So I really truly appreciate it and I can't wait to share this with, my network and beyond.
Well, I'm so flattered you reached out, and it's been a great conversation. So thank you for having me. I'm really humbled.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Every week on the Growth and Grit podcast, we bring you real stories and practical tools to help you thrive through challenges. If this resonates with you, make sure you subscribe, follow, and share this podcast with someone who could use it too. It only takes a second, but it would mean the world to us, and it keeps you plugged in to fresh inspiration.